Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I want to talk to you a little bit about the shadow work wound. Someone is selfish, or I am being taken advantage of. Now, if you're not familiar with shadow work, this is a really, really powerful tool, and it honestly has a massive impact on our attachment styles and on the way we heal with our attachment styles. So I'm going to take you through like a little bit of a high level exercise in this video that's going to talk to you about how to find the shadow work piece. And you can start by thinking, if this is something that triggers you, if you get triggered by the selfishness in other people, or you feeling taken advantage of, there's a really important golden nugget in here for you. And I'm going to show you what that is in this video and show you how sort of the shadow work exercise works so you can recognize these things for yourself. Now, before I dive into all of this, I just want to let you know we are doing our Boxing Week sale, 30% off. We won't do a sale like this again for quite some time. And right now this includes everything. So when you come in and you buy a membership, for 3, 6, 12 months, the bundles, or even a lifetime access pass, which is like hugely off right now and discounted. What you get access to is like our 10 live events per week with our attachment coaches. You get to connect with our community in Zoom video calls and do morning and evening program routines with our trained attachment coaches. I do 4 live webinars a week as well. So we've got all kinds of stuff going on in there. And then of course we have the previously 40 recorded courses. They're all a few hours in length, and you can go through and there's like a 15 to 30 page workbook. Sorry, there's like a 25 to 30 page workbook for every course. I think we might have one course that has like 20 pages or something. But anyways, they're really in depth, really detailed, and that all is in there for 30% off right now. So it'll come out to like less than $50 a month, I think. For the membership bundles if you buy for more than 3 months. So just, very, very affordable. And we have amazing life-changing results for people in there. So let's talk about this topic now. So first and foremost, basically a shadow trait is anything you are repressing within yourself. It's any part of yourself in its totality that you are trying to deny, hide, or reject by pushing down and ignoring, avoiding, not accessing, not utilizing in the self-expression or the expression of your personality, by kind of repressing it into the subconscious mind. And the reason we do this, the reason we have a shadow, and shadow work was originally coined by Carl Jung, who's like amazing. And if you've ever read any of Carl Jung's books or work, it's very, very in-depth and pretty phenomenal stuff. But basically he talks a lot about how we basically have this need to repress or reject parts of ourselves because we've learned that these parts of ourselves in childhood don't get our needs met or make us bad or unworthy of love, and basically take away from what we're trying to achieve in our lives. So for example, maybe in childhood, you have parents who really value, peace and quiet and feel overwhelmed by their lives. And so when you're loud and you express any gregarious behavior, or you're loud or really expressive, you get shamed and you get judged. So you learn, for example, that being expressive, being loud gets me, doesn't get my needs met. It gets me taken away from being loved and accepted by people I love, by my caregivers, by people whose approval I need. And so you learn to repress this part of yourself because you've wired it with negative associations. Basically, what's actually happening is your subconscious mind has programmed parts of the self and with being bad, with being negative, wired in negative emotional associations next to traits within oneself, and then push those things down and avoided expressing them to try to stay safe or to try to gain love. So then these things that we have repressed into ourselves not only make us feel more unworthy, because if we're rejecting any part of ourselves that deeply, then that's going to make us feel unworthy, just like if somebody else were to reject us so deeply and not let us show parts of ourselves to them. So not only do we have less confidence when we have a denser shadow, but we're also more likely to be triggered when other people exhibit those behaviors or express those traits that we're so busy repressing because we think they're bad. Now, part of this is because the subconscious mind is trying to push these traits up, and we have this part of us trying to consciously push these traits down. And so there's this little war happening between the different components of our mind to a certain degree. But also it will feel like an injustice. Like, oh, why do they get to be accepted for being loud? and I have to be quiet. And then tertiarily, you'll also see that it's like, well, if you've got negative stored associations and programs around this specific trait, when someone expresses it, those stored emotions are also going to be triggered to come to the surface. So if you've made being loud a bad thing, then what's going to happen? Well, you're going to feel like when someone's loud, those negative emotions are going to come up that you've stored in relationship to what being loud means. Okay. And so all these things are happening at once. So let's look at this specifically in the idea of like somebody is selfish or I am being taken advantage of, because they tend to go hand in hand, right? Somebody's disregarding my needs. You could think of selfishness as somebody being so focused on them, they disregard you. So they tend to kind of go hand in hand here. Now, what often happens when we're triggered by this pattern of behavior is first we have to look, okay, if I'm triggered by selfishness, then where am I repressing this trait within myself? Where am I rejecting, denying this? And anything that's out of balance is generally going to be less healthy. So we have to look, okay, where do I repress my ability to practice a healthy amount of selfishness, to take myself and my needs into consideration, to see and hear myself? And you can bet if selfishness triggers you in someone else, that there's a part of you that is not able to access or express a healthy amount of balanced selfishness, i.e., like self-orientation, taking oneself into consideration. And when we're looking at how to integrate this shadow piece, we can ask ourselves these three questions, okay? When I'm triggered by somebody else, the trait that I'm triggered by, specifically the trait, where do I express this trait in the relationship to myself? Number one. Number two, where do I express this trait in my relationship to the person I'm judging? Okay. So when I'm busy judging the person, let's just say a really clear example, I'm judging somebody for being critical. Well, where am I being critical of them in the moment that I'm making that judgment? Okay, so the shadow trait often shows up in real time towards the person, right? I'm judging that person for being selfish. So I'm kind of selfishly expecting them to abide by my expectations of how they should be at all times, right? You see it. And number three, where am I acting this way to someone else in my life that I'm not noticing? And what these three questions do is they give you this like 360 aerial view of the self. And they help you see these things that are pushed down. Are they either not healthily integrated? We don't have a healthy amount of them? Or are we actively acting this way in some area in our lives that we're not recognizing? Because often the things we try to repress, what happens is they come out in some kind of other hidden form. So we try to repress something, so we act that way to ourselves instead, or we act that way in a specific relationship that often goes unnoticed, things like this. So let's go through the questions together. I'm triggered by somebody taking advantage of me, let's say. Okay, where do I take advantage of myself to gain favor with others? Or where do I take advantage of this person here that I'm judging? In what form? It could be a different form. They might be taking advantage of you financially. Maybe you take advantage of them emotionally and you always dump emotionally on them. It can be all these different forms, but you want to take a 360 sort of aerial view, and you can look in all 7 areas of life: career, financial, mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, and relationships. Like, where do I take advantage of them in a different form than the one I'm judging them in, for example? And lastly, is there anybody I take advantage of in my life, or anybody I have taken advantage of in the past and haven't accepted or forgiven myself for? Now, what you'll find is that it may not be all three. You might just have one of those, or you might have two of those, or all three of them. But the idea here is to look. And shadow work is a really powerful exercise because it helps us see ourselves more deeply and profoundly. And it also helps us to then release some of those deep feelings of unworthiness. So I have a huge, really in-depth course on this in a tremendous amount of detail, called Overcome Unworthiness by Understanding and Accepting Your Shadow. So you can always check that out. But this is a fun exercise to practice. And this is a question I get all the time from people when it comes to the taken advantage of, or being triggered by other people who are selfish, not taking you into consideration, things like this. Well, it's often a big mirror of behaviors that most often are actually about the relationship to yourself. So hopefully this makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you're getting a lot of value out of this channel, and I will see you in the next video.